game like that. And I'm not saying you can't ever complain, but in a game like that, I just feel like you started the show with it. I feel like it's become this narrative, and it's like nothing you said was wrong, but that shouldn't be the lead-in, and that was kind of the lead-in after the game, I think, with some in the media. That was the angle they were trying to push, and I think, I think it shouldn't be the lead coming out of that game. Because but listen, you're doing it. Everybody's done it. It's not just you. Like, everyone this weekend has done it, and yeah, the players were talking about it and saying stuff about it because they were being asked about the slow start. A slow start where you're up, you scored on your first possession, 7 points. play. He was really sharp with those slants and those type passes. I thought he threw the ball. He might have thrown the ball better, just in terms of just grading his throws in this game than he has in any of the three.
You know, listened to the McKinneys last week on Texas Radio with you, and they were talking about Travion's need to just run through a couple more tackles. And I thought on Saturday night he certainly did that more so than he's done in his first two games. 22 carries for 128 yards, 5.8 average, and a touchdown. I thought it was a good night for Travion. He looked determined. He looked fresh. Again, all these are good signs. If you're going to do the unthinkable and go into Alabama and win the game, or at least have it competitive into the fourth quarter, Travion's going to have to break some tackles and turn a 2-yard gain into a 5 for a first down every now and then. So I thought that was encouraging.
Yeah, and it's different to do it against ULM. But the thing about ULM, as the game progressed, and they're designed to stop the run there, because it was very clear that that's what A&M was doing. They were trying to blow plays up. I thought it was a good test for the Aggie O-line, just to have to deal with so much kind of recklessness up front. That's a lot of times harder to deal with, and a lot of times what you'll get are these big, long gash runs, but then a lot of no-gain tackles for loss type things. And they kept that to a minimum. They didn't really have too many gash runs, but they really were just methodical and consistent down the field. And it was ULM never had a chance to stop that ground game when A&M's going out there with two backs or two tights, and a couple times two tights and a fullback. They don't have a chance against that.
What did you think of Jashawn Corbin's performance late in the game? And then is he setting himself up to, at some point, maybe not this week because it's Bama and you have to have a reliable guy that you know is going to be blitz pickup kind of kid as their backup, but I think there's starting to become a place for Jashawn Corbin to touch the ball in a competitive game.
I think so. I mean, I think he's really explosive.
He's so close to breaking a couple of these.
Someone on our board wanted to compare him to Alvin Kamara, which I could see some of that, but I see more Travis Etienne. I see more of what they saw last week against Clemson. He's not necessarily tall. He's got good height for a running back, but he's a leaner, longer, but he's very, very explosive. Can catch. What you haven't seen yet is how well he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But I think he's a guy that when he touches the football can rip you off 30 or 40 yards on any given handoff, so watch out. I think he's a guy, for lack of a better word, as he starts playing more, he's going to scare opposing defensive coordinators. When he's a role player that's getting the ball a few times a game, they're going to say, hey, watch out when seven's in, because if you get caught slipping, he can take it to the house. He's been close on a lot of runs already.
Yep.
You saw his first run was for about 20-plus yards, and it got called back. He came back on his next one and ran for like 12 or something. But
and the thing is,
I agree with you.
He's been in games where they know it's like just kind of kill the clock, and so he's still be able to rip off a couple runs. He makes the first guy miss, and he's 7-8 yards downfield, and he's just, like you said, one ankle tackle away from going to the house.
I agree with you that he's he'll play a lot more. I don't know if that means at the expense of Etwe, because it might be to cut into Travion's carries. Etwe doesn't play a bunch, and I think he's so reliable that they want to keep him. You know, they want to keep Etwe with a role, and he's been explosive. He ran the ball okay in a couple of touches against Clemson. He can block. He showed you can make plays in the passing game. He's good in the screen game. So I think actually, I say they'll find a way, and it might be as the season goes on where they'll cut into Travion's carries a little bit, just not to overextend him and keep him fresh and from taking too much of a pounding. But I do think we'll see more of Jashawn Corbin, and certainly maybe it's not this week like you said, but Arkansas, Kentucky, and moving forward, you could see him getting some meaningful touches.
On the other side of the break, we'll continue our game and review. You're listening to the Beliucci Hour Lunch, live on The Zone.
This is The Zone FM, 102.7 on Sports Radio 1150.
Here's Brad Beard of Intercon When we started Intercon in early 1991, we were well aware that we would be competing with some companies that use unscrupulous techniques to make a quick sale, such as bait and switch, or 40% off if you commit today, or misleading incomplete quotes. Intercon's practice is to be completely honest and encourage prospective customers to talk to our former customers. We've encouraged customers to get multiple quotes. We are confident and proud of our value proposition for windows, glass, and solar screens. We never want anyone to rush into a decision they will regret in the future. Just remember, warranties are only as good as the people who provide them and are servicing the area when situations arise. This is our home and only marketplace, and we will protect our home turf. You've probably heard the saying, the buck stopped here, and that is with me, Brad Beard, president and co-owner of Intercon LLC.
Whether you have new construction or an existing home, let the fine folks from Intercon help your home energy efficiency year-round. Call Brad Beard of Intercon today at 823-3639. That's 823-3639.
Folks are always looking for a place to meet friends, grab some food, relax, and unwind with a cold beer, mixed drink, or glass of Boots Sweet Tea. The Tap on Harvey Road has been the place to do just that for nearly 30 years. A casual atmosphere and tasty food keeps people coming back for more. Our burgers, salads, chicken tenders, nachos, and more are sure to satisfy whatever craving you have. And being in SEC country, the Tap is a great place to meet before, during, or after the game. See you at the Tap on Harvey Road in College Station.
Everyone makes mistakes. Mistakes can land you on the wrong side of the law. If so, you need someone on your side. Steve Gustitis, attorney at law, has over 20 years' experience fighting felony and misdemeanor charges. Steve Gustitis will fight for you. Call now to set up your free consultation, 823-9111. Qualified people are ready to take your call. Call 823-9111 or visit GustitisLaw.com to see how Steve Gustitis can put the law on your side.
Every 12 minutes, someone dies from opioid addiction. It's a unique addiction, and only one treatment network focuses exclusively on this one thing: crushing opioid addiction.
Symmetry Recovery. One mission, 3 key elements.
Medication, behavioral therapy, and an outpatient setting.
With a success rate 4 times the industry average.
Call 844-847-6999. For you or a loved one, that's 844-847-6999.
Hey, opioid addiction, we've got your number.
Gage Gandy Bail Bonds. We put your feet back on the streets. Fast professional service with the best rates in town. Gage Gandy Bail Bonds. Open 24/7. Call 979-821-BOND. That's 979-821-2663. Gage Gandy Bail Bonds is Aggie-owned and operated, class of 95, serving the Brazos Valley for over 20 years. Gage Gandy Bail Bonds is located behind the Brazos County Courthouse in Bryan. Call 979-821-BOND. That's 979-821-2663. Or visit GageGandyBailBonds.com. We put your feet back on the streets.
It's fall in the Brazos Valley, which means the boys are back. And no, not just the ones on the field. 30 minutes after every Aggie home game, Louie and Dusty are live for the Zone Collins Show, sponsored by TexAgs.com. The Zone Collins Show is sponsored by Jerry Anderson, Allstate Insurance, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Caliber Realty, and Elms Orthodontics. The two most understanding guys in Aggieland, it's Louie and Dusty on the Zone Collins Show, sponsored by TexAgs.com, and it's on Sports Radio 1150 and the Zone 102.7 FM.
Ryan Broniger, Beliucci, here at the Tap on Harvey Road with you for the Beliucci Hour lunch on a very hot Tuesday. It seems like the weather is getting warmer as we head into the middle of September. And Aggies on the road this weekend in Tuscaloosa, but we are one more segment breaking down the 48-10 win over the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks on Saturday night. Luch, I thought the defensive performance outside of that one drive at the end of the half was really pretty solid. I thought the tackling was better. They got beat on a couple of deep balls, which remains a concern with what you've got coming up this week. But, again, like you said, I think people were looking for things maybe to complain about. You give up 10 points to a pretty good offense with a good quarterback and a couple of receivers that could play anywhere just about in the SEC. I thought it was a good night for the defense.
Yeah, anytime you give up one touchdown in 60 minutes of football, it's a good night, right? Like
and the staff is upset about that one touchdown.
And you here's the thing. First thing that stood out was one touchdown. Second thing that stood out, second half defensive adjustments. They did gain over 250 yards in the first half, which for Mike Elko had to be completely inexcusable. Now, probably 80% of those yards came on 6 plays, but those 6 plays are inexcusable for Elko, I can guarantee you.
Well, Tyrell Dotson even mentioned that in his
post game. Yeah. But now, here's the thing. In the second half, they didn't give up a point, and they gave up 57 yards of offense. And that was with playing backups through probably a couple of possessions there at the end. 57 yards of offense, didn't allow a point. They played outstanding defense in the second half.
Got
Terrific.
the first turnover of the year.
Got a turnover, got 4 sacks. It was the first game where they really kind of got that pass rush really going. I thought and the poor tackling and the big plays, a couple of them came really early. Like A&M was kind of trying to get settled into that game and figure out exactly what, how Monroe was attacking them. The one play was a really bad one where it was Dalen blew up the play but missed the guy in the backfield, and then Alaka missed him, and it ended up being a 30-yard run, and that was that kind of set the tone for the first couple of drives there, and then they settled in. Then at the end of the half, Charles Oliver jumps a route, misses it on a 10, 12-yard out, turns into a 35-yard gain. Next play, guy gets beat. It's a pretty deep ball. Nice throw, nice catch, 35-yard gain. Then they settled in. The big plays do concern me. They do. And I think getting Carper back, getting Clifford Chapman, getting
Michael Clemens.
Clemens is a pass
Right.
rush. But these DBs just in the secondary and these guys getting a little more experience, I think they'll get better and better. But it is a concern when you're playing Alabama this week. It's a concern against anyone, as ULM showed you, but particularly Bama, and then when you go Kentucky and their playmakers, and with Benny Snell and Wilson, the quarterback, when you go
Auburn.
Well, I'm saying just going real back-to-back, Kentucky, South Carolina with Debo Samuel and Bentley and other players too. You go, Auburn in particular stands out. Mississippi State. You're about to face a bunch of guys that are a lot more capable of ripping off big plays than ULM was. And you saw what Clemson did. So it's certainly something that I'm sure Mike Elko is sitting there going, okay, how do I shore this up? Because while he's proven he can really make second half adjustments as good as anybody in the game, and he's also proven, I think, that his scheme is pretty airtight. And I mean, you go back and look at every big play they've given up. It's either been a terrific play like the T. Higgins catch, or a crazy push-off like what T. Higgins, or missed tackles. My point is, on almost every single
His guys are in spots.
We really haven't seen a bust in 3 games. That's incredible considering where they're coming from. Now you just need the guys, to finish and either with more repetition and more harping on it, they eliminate those mistakes, or there's a couple little instances where as we go down the season you could see other guys playing, but we'll see where it goes.
We're a quarter of the way through the season now, Luch. Is Dalen Mack the defensive MVP of this team through 3 games? He's been really good.
Yeah, I wrote this week that I thought he's been their best defensive player in 3 games. I mean, I think the disruption he's causing, it doesn't have to show up on a stat sheet. It reminds me of those Bama inside guys when you're talking about, all these
Cody.
guys that are just absolute monsters that are unstoppable. But then there's that guy in the middle that really makes it all go. Deron Payne was a guy, and all these guys.
LSU's had a ton of them too.
Yeah, LSU has them. They're just disruptors. Christian Lockature got no credit last year.
Go all the way back to Glenn Dorsey, like guys that just ate up dudes in the middle and let those guys run behind them and make plays. LSU's got it again this year with Lawrence.
In this case, too, it's not even with Dalen. I would say he's not just eating up guys. There's a difference.
Well, he's moving the line of scrimmage.
He is resetting it. He's exploding into the backfield, making running backs go off their desired path before. So I think he's been pretty damn good through 3 games.
And got a field goal block, which was a huge momentum swing in that game the other night.
Yep.
Did you think that?
And by the way, Matabike is right there too.
He's been great,
those 2 guys have been. And here's what I'll say. And we'll talk a lot of Bama on Thursday. and we should just start now because we're reviewing ULM, and we got a game against the defending national champs,
Yeah,
number one.
we were
Let's
turning
roll.
the page, yeah.
But I'm going to say this. If there's a matchup I like in that football game for A&M, it is the A&M D-line, particularly the Kiki, Matabike, Mack, and that depth against the Alabama O-line. And I'm telling you, I know they've got Jonah Williams. I just don't think it's as dominant a front as they've had. And it's the only way to do anything to slow down Tua. Now, Mike Elko and his schemes, and if they can win the line of scrimmage, they haven't played even a decent defense yet this year. So if this A&M defense is solid to good, they haven't played anything close to it. I think they're really good offensively.
This is maybe the best offense Saban's had.
But maybe they're not unstoppable. They're really good. They'd probably be one of the two best A&M plays this year.
I don't think there's a question about that.
Yeah, but
Who
maybe
would be the other one?
I know. I was thinking about that
Clemson?
earlier. Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe Auburn if they got
Ole
it
Miss.
going. See, I don't worry. I worry about them in the big plays, but I don't think Ole Miss is up there. Here's the deal with Ole Miss. That offense that looked so bad against Bama and makes you think Bama's defense is back. Don't forget, John Chavis shut that offense out in the second half last year with a defense that was not good at all. A&M pitched a second half shutout. It was all those same receivers plus Van Jefferson. It was Tua. It was Greg Little. And they shut that. And they might have had a better running back, Wilkins, last year. They shut that offense out, period. So, but I think if there's a battle that A&M is most likely to win, it could be up front when Alabama has the ball. And I don't know what that does to Tua. I don't know what facing a DC like Elko does with his blitz schemes and his disguised coverages to a guy that's still starting his fourth game. I don't know what that does. I could certainly see a world where Tua he comes out of that game and you're like, dude, this guy's the Heisman front runner.
Sure,
but what if he's not perfect on third down, and what if A&M does bottle up their inside running game, and what does that do? So he's faced 13 third downs in 3 games, and he's perfect on those third downs with 6 touchdowns. But that's not a lot of third downs to be facing in 3 football games. So we'll see. I just think there's one edge. I think another edge is A&M's downfield passing game. I do think they're susceptible back there. I know Deontay Thompson's putting up numbers. I don't think that secondary is near what it's been in the past for Alabama.
You got to block them long enough.
That's the key.
Yep.
So the 2 keys to me, it comes back to, can you block, and can that defensive line win that battle?
Yeah.
Against Clemson, it was kind of held your own, better than expected, and yes, you won on defense. And I think if those 2 things happen, I think A&M can make it more competitive than that spread would indicate.
On the other side of the break, we'll continue to look ahead to Alabama. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone.
From News Talk 1620 WTAW, I'm Chelsea Reber with a news update on Sports Radio 1150 and the Zone 102.7 FM. The new home of the Bryan School District's administration offices is an 81-year-old building. BISD Communications Director Matt LeBlanc says a portrait and plaque of the school's first principal, Wessa Weddington, were recently discovered and placed just inside the main entrance.
She's the granddaughter of Harvey Mitchell, a master's degree in 1918, and just really, really accomplished, especially for a woman in the early 1900s, and an important part of our history here in Bryan and Brazos County. And so thankfully now they've returned the plaque, and it sits in its rightful place at the entrance to the old SFA High School.
LeBlanc says someone saved the portrait and plaque from being thrown away, and both were kept at Bryan's First Presbyterian Church. Texas A&M students have 20 minutes to get from one class to the next. How to get across one of the nation's largest campuses in terms of land area was among the questions asked of A&M's top 2 academic leaders at this month's Faculty Senate meeting. President Michael Young says in the short run, the problem is relatively insurmountable.
If students have a class in Zachary and then plan another class 23 minutes away, they probably need to replan. I mean, it's just really challenging because there is no, absent teleporters from Star Wars, it's just not possible to figure Star Trek, what I'm saying.
Young says A&M now provides autonomous vehicles to take some disabled students from one building to another. A second location for driverless vehicles could be downtown Bryan. Today, the Bryan City Council will consider agreements to allow battery-operated shuttles to drive a loop bordered by 26th, Regent, 28th, and Main. The electric vehicles owned by the A&M Engineering Experiment Station would include a T's safety driver. I'm Chelsea Reber on Sports Radio 1150 and the Zone 102.7 FM.
For nearly 2 decades, TexAgs has been the #1 Aggie community online. And thanks to that community, we've been able to grow into so much more. TexAgs is now an industry-leading media company that covers Aggie football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting like nobody else. Our staff of over 30 consistently delivers in-depth analysis, X's and O's breakdowns, award-winning video content, and the most reliable inside information you can find. So if you love the Ags, come check us out at texags.com and become a premium subscriber. texags.com/subscribe.
Fender benders, parking lot challenges, scrapes, bruises, and bumps. I'm vehicle challenged when it comes to avoiding objects that get in my way. Hi, I'm Mary Mike Hatcher for Oscar & Sons Body Shop. My car is my second office, and it's so important to keep it looking great. Oscar & Sons Body Shop has done just that. As a family affair for over 40 years, they remove cosmetic blemishes to major auto body repair. Google Oscar & Sons. They'll come to you with a free estimate for your repairs. Oscar & Sons Body Shop. They wreck it, we fix it.
All A&M. Yes! All the time. I love it. It's TexAgs Radio.
Insane enough to be genius.
8 to 11 weekdays here on The Zone.
You say you want a revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world.
Welcome back, Beliucci Hour Lunch on a Tuesday, September the 18th, here at the Tap on Harvey Road. Ryan Bronner and Beliucci. Lucci, I want to get, before we go dive headfirst into Bama, and we've got some questions here from the Tap about the upcoming matchup this Saturday in Tuscaloosa. But who are some of your big standouts this past Saturday in college football? Big winners, big losers? I thought the Big Ten had an awful day.
They've had an awful month. I mean, the Big Ten has had a really rough stretch from the bottom to the top outside of Ohio State. Had Ohio State lost to TCU, that league's done. Penn State is fortunate they escaped App State, in the opener there. That was overtime, correct? Yeah, that one was OT. They're the most overrated league I've seen in a while to be exposed this early the way they have, and I hope the voters and the playoff committee remembers this. Look, if Ohio State rolls and is undefeated, wins the Big Ten title game, beats TCU in the non-conference, they're certainly going to have a spot in there. But if everybody in that league, there's a couple of one-loss teams and a couple you need to be really careful about who you put in. When it comes to the Pac-12, I still think it's a UW or Stanford. One of those two will even have a say. The other one's out. And I think the Big Ten, there might only be one team in the discussion. We're 3 weeks into the season, and it's starting to look like, unless Penn State and Ohio State, one of them's undefeated and one of them's one loss, which I just don't see happening. I think Michigan's going to upset the apple cart there a little bit.
I don't think they're very good either, though.
I don't either. I'm saying, though, but they're good enough to beat like a Penn State. Penn State could trip up against somebody. I just think out of those teams, Ohio State and really UW with maybe Penn State and maybe Stanford, there's like 4 teams that are even in the discussion out of 2 entire conferences combined. 20. What is that? Pac-12 is 14 teams, and the Big Ten is 14, right? There are 28 teams. There's like 4 that you would even say. Like Wisconsin, you're done. You lose at home to BYU, and you play in the weakest. For as strong as everyone was saying the east of the Big Ten was, which, by the way, has been exposed, Michigan State, Penn State barely getting by, Michigan losing to Notre Dame. I mean, Vanderbilt, who's like the 11th best team in the SEC, came within, a guy not coming down with a catch of having a chance to beat Notre Dame. They played them tougher than Michigan did. Vandy did. So I think the Big Ten was the big losers. I think USC was a big loser. Texas was a big winner this weekend. By
Big
their
winner. Well,
no. You're talking about this weekend only. They didn't beat a good team, but they spun the narrative because they beat a traditional power, and they beat them in front of 100,000, and they beat them handily at home. They spun the narrative. Now, good thing for everyone else in the civilized world, particularly on Twitter, Pitts Patterson is going in with his mock turtleneck and his defense this weekend, and hopefully can, shut that thing down before it even gets going. But for the weekend, that was a game Texas and Tom Herman absolutely had to have. They had no other option.
What did you think of TCU's performance?
It was good. It was to be determined, Bronny.
If they run the table in the Big 12, are they in the playoff?
Well, to run the table, they'd have to beat
Oklahoma twice.
Either OU or West Virginia twice probably, and beat the other one. They'd have to win 3 games against OU and West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tall task. If they did it, I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they look that good. I think they look good, but they still gave up 40 points. Now, I think there was a pick 6 in there, if I'm not mistaken. But they still they led Ohio State in the second half. It reminded me of like A&M versus Bama a couple times, where it wasn't A&M Clemson is what I'm saying. It wasn't A&M Clemson where it came down to the final play, a 2-point conversion, and where Clemson was like tapping out and happy the game was over. This was more like the Bama game last year. Not last year. That was Bama controlled that. That was like the Bama game 2 years ago when A&M led at halftime. They got a 3-and-out. Looked like they were going to get the ball back in the third quarter, and then Bama just kind of pulled away and choked them out. That's what Ohio State did at TCU. But I was impressed. TCU, I think, is better on offense than I thought. I actually wonder a little bit about their D. I went and watched them in person, Bronny. I just think they're so small on defense. There are certain times and certain teams that are going to give them problems. I'm not sure Texas is not one of them running the football behind a big O-line.
Texas? I don't see I think TCU's too dynamic. I think they'll be able to score on offense. What did you think of LSU, and what do you think of LSU? Not just on Saturday, but where do you think LSU is right now? And I can say that on my end, and Orgeron and Steve Ensminger have made me eat some crow 3 weeks into the season. They've got the best resume 3 weeks in of anybody in the country.
LSU's the two biggest surprises in college football to me right now are the Big Ten and LSU. But because I thought they'd be 1-2. Now, knowing what I know about Miami, if you asked me that again, I'd say they'd be 2-1. This Auburn win really got my attention. Miami stinks. Texas A&M right now would beat Miami. Probably 8 teams in the SEC would beat Miami. I think them going and beating Auburn the way they did told me a little more about Auburn again. That lack of running game. I don't trust Stidham. I do not trust Jarrett Stidham. When it's rolling well for him, he can really get it going. When it's not,
he missed a couple deep balls.
I don't trust
which has been his bugaboo his
and
whole
they win
career.
that game if he hits them.
But that was a weird game because it felt like early, like LSU was running off, and then that momentum stopped abruptly, and then Auburn felt like they were going to run off.
Yeah.
But neither team could score enough to get it outside of a 7 to 10 point advantage.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there watching the game at the office, and I was telling the people I was watching it was like, this is not good if you're an LSU or an Auburn fan that you feel like you've dominated a large portion of this game and you're not out of the woods with it. And it came back, and it ended up even in the end, and then a huge kick from Chad Tracy.
That's just called an SEC West football game. But it's what it turned into. I mean,
it was a good job of both teams keeping it at 7 or 10 points and not letting it get out of hand.
I think Ed O's done a hell of a job as a coach. I'm sorry, and you can put me on record. I'm not sold on that LSU offense. I'm not. They hit that big play. I just think that's a very average offense. I think Burrow has shown some moxie and stuff, but he's still – it's not like he's sitting there lighting things up. He's made a few very timely throws that have been good and turned into big plays for them, but I still don't think that offense's ceiling, I don't think, is that high. I think they get beat pretty badly up front on the O-line. And you talk to the people in Baton Rouge, they're still saying that there's a lot of shuffling yet to be done up there up front. I do love their defense, and particularly their I mean, really there's nowhere not to like on their D. That's a tough defense. And I think they're really good. I don't think they beat Georgia or Alabama. And then I think out of A&M here at the end of the year and Mississippi State. So do they go 10-2, 9-3, or 8-4? I think 10-2 at Ozen, coach. He's the SEC Coach of the Year. I think if they're 8-4, it's not. It's kind of one game off what what a lot of the experts thought.
I think to close this segment around college football, I think we have to talk about what happened in Fayetteville. I mean, first-year coach, I get it. North Texas is a good, non-Power 5 team this year. But, man, 44-17, you're never competitive in the game. It was hard for me to sit there and watch.
It wasn't for me.
But
I enjoyed it.
I couldn't believe that team, because we know Arkansas has some good players.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. They have some good players, but it's like I always say, tell me a team in the SEC that doesn't. I mean,
they all do.
Missouri,
that's what I'm saying.
Vandy,
you should get beat 44-17
by an out of conference. Yeah, but they don't have. But Arkansas, I think, they have the least amount of talent in the conference, and I think Chad Morris is saddled with a pretty horrific situation at quarterback.
I think he played 5 of them or 6 kids at quarterback on Saturday. I got a text asking if somebody had checked on Tipton during the middle of the day Saturday.
Yeah.
We were worried about you, Tipton.
It is. It's a bad situation. Someone asked me how many games do I think they win. I went and looked at that schedule. Their remaining non-conference game is against Tulsa.
That's no gimme.
Not for them. It's against Tulsa. And then in conference, they draw, they Ole Miss, then they draw Vandy, and they draw Missouri. So they might draw the 3 teams that are, towards definitely in the bottom 5 or so in the league. But with the way they looked the other day, I don't think they could ever score enough to beat Ole Miss or Missouri. And then Vandy's just a better football team.
Overall.
This could be a 2-10, 3-9 type team.
They may not win another one.
Yeah, I'm saying 2-10, 3-9. It might be 2-10, 1-11. Which, if you're Chad Morris and you were 14-22, and if they went 2-10 and you're 16-32 as a head coach, it leads you to go, how did you get a job at an SEC West football program, and what were they thinking? And that's why people like Tipton were so out of line and so insanely off base to think that Scott Woodward was going to go in that direction when A&M had an opening, and that A&M would fire Kevin Sumlin to hire Chad Morris. And I think Morris is better than what we're seeing right now. But this is a bad start, and here's the problem. Problem is, if you're Arkansas, to get the players you need to get,
you have to win.
You have to win because it's hard to recruit there. They're kind of fortunate that it's a nice year in the state there, but you're going to be out-recruited by just about everyone in the West. Not really any year, but especially this year, and even next year if you come off a 1-10 compared to everyone else you're recruiting. So they better be some incredible developers over there of talent. And to be honest, I don't think we've seen, and we certainly did not see that from Chief when he was here. So there's one side of the ball, and then Morris, I don't think I think that remains.
Real quick before we close this segment, who wins more games this year, Arkansas or Florida State?
Man, there's some between Willie Taggart and Chad Morris, but that one's a little tougher gig. But between Willie Taggart and Chip Kelly and Kevin Sumlin and Chad Morris, a lot of these hires that everyone's talking about, and that a lot of people put above Jimbo Fisher, which you should lose whatever credibility and credentials you have at this point. Just admit it that you suck at what you do, especially the part of trying to evaluate coaching hires. But, Joe Moorhead, Jimbo Fisher, those look like the two best hires. And Dan Mullen, I think long-term is going to end up being one of those three.
Mm-hmm. On the other side of the break, we'll close the show with your question from here at the tap. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on The Zone.
Folks are always looking for a place to meet friends, grab some food, relax, and unwind with a cold beer, mixed drink, or glass of Boots Sweet Tea. The Tap on Harvey Road has been the place to do just that for nearly 30 years. A casual atmosphere and tasty food keeps people coming back for more. Our burgers, salads, chicken tenders, nachos, and more are sure to satisfy whatever craving you have. And being an SEC country, the Tap is a great place to meet before, during, or after the game. See you at the Tap on Harvey Road in College Station.
Be good to your vehicle, and it'll be good to you. Hi, I'm Gabriel Garcia from Traditions Mobile One Oil and Lube. And while that's a simple concept, it's so true. We're a full-service oil and lube shop with years of experience. And that experience tells us to always go the extra mile for our customers. Like topping off fluids for free on most vehicles and free tire pressure checks.
See Traditions Mobile One Oil and Lube on Villa Maria at 2818 next to Raleigh Car Wash or at East William J. Bryan next to the main post office. That tailgate guy, he's the guy whose car is always way too close for comfort. Sure, you could teach him a lesson by slamming on your brakes, but you're a safe driver. At Allstate, they think you deserve a reward for not stooping to his level. If you've got a safe record, you can save big on car insurance. Safe drivers should pay less. That's Allstate's stand. Are you in good hands? Call Allstate agent Jerry Anderson at 979-764-0015. Discounted insurance offered only with select companies and subject to availability and qualifications. Discount amount may be lower and applies to most major coverages. Allstate Insurance Company, Allstate Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company, Northbrook, Illinois.
Hi, this is Bobby Jenkins with ABC Home and Commercial Services. This is the time of year when rodents are flourishing. That means rats, raccoons, and mice are seeking shelter inside your home. And no matter what kind of rodents you have, ABC can create a plan to get rid of them. Close up the openings where they come in and catch any that may be in your home. Plus, all ABC specialists undergo background screening so you can feel comfortable with our team on your property. ABC Home and Commercial Services, specialists for your environment.
For courteous service, just call ABC Home and Commercial Services.
This is a radio spot for parents of children needing braces. Kids, tune out. Not that you're listening anyway. It's that time. Orthodontics. So you ask your friends. They say Dr. Elms. You ask your coworkers. They say Dr. Elms because he also has a free shuttle. You ask your kids. They don't say anything, of course. But you say, do you want butter with that roll? So there you go. Dr. Elms. Next thing you know, college. And their teeth will look great.
DrElms.com.
If you missed the Louis Beliucci Show powered by Team of Navasota, you missed.
I'm going to tell you, there's one thing to listen to coaches pound it into your head. If you work hard, if you do this, you do that, good things will happen. Well, when you take those lessons that they've been throwing at you and then you apply them on the field and you nearly pull off the biggest upset of the year in the early season, what that does is it shows you it's on film now. You don't want to go back to what you were. You have to live to the standard that you showed against Clemson. Don't be a prisoner of the moment where just because it was Clemson you played well. Jimbo's saying that you've got to play that well against Clemson, Alabama, the Citadel, whoever you're playing. You play with that kind of effort, and good things are going to really happen in College Station. The fan base should just be electrified over this thing, but only if they show that they can play that way every week.
The Louis Beliucci Show, powered by teamofnavasota.com. Weekdays 11 to 2 on The Zone.
Closing the show on a Tuesday, Beliucci Hour Lunch. Ron Bronner and Beliucci from here at the Tap on Harvey Road. Be sure you're coming through and checking out the Tap's great lunch specials all week. $8.49 burger baskets. I think that's every day. It comes with fries and a drink today. Special $8.49 blackened chicken sandwich. Monday nights, karaoke. Wednesday nights, piano bar. Always something fun going on here at the Tap. You can watch the A&M Alabama game here if you're not headed to Tuscaloosa. Great spot to watch a game, grab a bite to eat, hang out with friends, and really enjoy with all their TVs here. Enjoy a lot of college football throughout the day on Saturday. As we start turning our attention to the matchup Saturday 2:30 on CBS, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, A&M, Alabama. the Aggies have been competitive in this series. They've only won one game. Where's this Alabama team, Luch? We talked about earlier in the show. They haven't played a ton of great teams. They haven't played anybody I would say it was a great team. But where are they at?
I don't know if they've played. Ole Miss will. It'll be interesting to see if they play a team that finishes better than 6-6.
In your opinion, where does this Alabama team? You haven't really dove in and broke them down too much, but where does this team stand in terms of Nick Saban's entire career in terms of talent?
I don't think they're where the other teams have been defensively, but I still think they could be the best defense in the country, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not as dominant as their other teams, but I don't know if they can if they're defensively as good as some of these great I know they're not, actually. The team 2 years ago that scored like 76 defensive touchdowns in every game. They were
Robinson, all those guys.
Last year's defense even.
That wasn't Ashawn Robinson. I'm thinking of Jonathan Allen.
No, Jonathan Allen. Yeah, I mean, just insert name here, right? Now it's Raekwon Davis and Isaiah Buggs. They've got a defensive tackle, their nose, that in his first start was the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week with 3.5 tackles for loss against Louisville. And it's just it's an assembly line, right? But I don't think they're as good defensively. But I think now, with that said, I think this is going to end up being Nick's best team. You're going to see it in terms of margin of victory. I think it's going to be one of his few teams that goes undefeated. And I think it's going to end up being considered his best because of margin of victory, because they run the table. Remember, I don't think he has very many that have gone undefeated, if you can believe that. I want to look that up during a commercial break. They typically lose a game under Nick Saban, and he's the best of the best, and that shows you how hard it is to run the table in this league. But I think this one will. I think they'll win by the margin. I think people will call it his best because the biggest difference is they are dynamic on offense, and they still have two great running backs in Damian and Najee Harris. They have a great, maybe a transcendent quarterback when it's all said and done.
The best one he's had.
By far. And quite possibly a Heisman winner, maybe even this year, but if not, on down the road, he looks like, this year or next before he goes to the NFL. And then they've got some playmakers at receiver, and their backup quarterback has
Kelly Bryant.
Carried them to 2 national title games. I think he's way better than Kelly Bryant, in my opinion. Bryant's a better passer. Jalen Hurts in their system, I mean, that dude just wins. Maybe not. I've been down on Jalen Hurts as a starter, and I think if they didn't have Tua this year and Jalen was the quarterback, I think this team loses a couple games. I think they lose a couple because their defense isn't quite as good. I don't think their O-line is quite as good. And then if you don't have that guy that can get the ball to those playmakers in the passing game and kind of keep a defense really off balance because of the threat to throw, it changes their whole football team.
Well, we're not sitting here saying they don't have a good defense.
As backups go, Jalen Hurts might be as good as any in the country.
Sure. Trevor Lawrence.
He's
as good, But
I'm not going to compare Jalen and Trevor Lawrence yet. Jalen Hurts has been 2 years of winning about 35 games and not throwing the ball great, but making plays.
We're not saying they have a bad defense at all.
No.
At all.
No.
They've actually put up really good numbers against Louisville, a good offense, a good offensive coach, and then Ole Miss, so we know what kind of offensive talent they've got.
It still might be the best defense A&M plays this year. Clemson will certainly have a say in that. LSU. It's still Auburn, but they still might be the best.
Yep, very much a possibility. We will be back on Thursday. We get more into this game, this matchup, and we will roll along with the week. Get the Aggies and Crimson Tide ready for Saturday at 2:30. You listen to the Beliucci Hour Lunch. Louis Bellina's on the other side.
Catch the Beliucci Hour every Tuesday and Thursday from noon till